Mr. Trump, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thank you.
Not on the phone, face-to-face, in
It's
person.
really nicer that way, right?
I think so too. Let's start with the horrendous news of the week. And I want to get you to react to what the president said. He came out very frustrated. He said, let me read you one of his quotes, "We spend over $1 trillion and pass countless laws and devote entire agencies to preventing terrorist attacks on our soil, and rightfully so. And yet we have a Congress that explicitly blocks us from collecting data on how we could potentially reduce gun deaths." How can that be?
Well, you know, I watched this statement and I understand exactly what he's saying, but you know, no matter what you do, guns, no guns, it doesn't matter. You have people that are mentally ill and they're going to come through the cracks and they're going to do things that people will not even believe are possible. And whether it's the school shootings, which are really very prevalent in this country, they seem to be more prevalent in this country. And I'm
What's
not
your
sure.
explanation?
They're just sick people. They are mentally imbalanced and they probably see it happening here more so.
Do you think we have more mentally ill people than other countries?
I think what we have is, I think we have copycats. I think they watch it and they see it here, maybe more than other places. And the world can be a pretty sick place in so many different ways, but we have mentally very unstable people, and that is going to lead. And you know, it's not politically correct to say you can have the best security, you can have the best everything, but people are able to get in and do this just terrible damage.
You've done a 180 on guns. You were
Yes.
somebody in the late 90s, you said, you know, why not have more background checks? Now
Well,
you're for less background
it's very
checks.
interesting. I actually carry a license, and
It's very difficult to get here in New York City.
very difficult. I have one, and I think it's a great thing to have. I mean, from my standpoint, I feel much better about
But
it.
should it be difficult to get? Shouldn't it be something that's difficult to get?
Well, I think what should happen is we should take care of a lot of the sick people that we have walking the streets. You know, in New York, I can tell you, they opened up hospitals because of the fact that it was so bad, and they let people out, and we have people walking around all over the country. We have it, and they do that for budget reasons, but we have people that are very sick walking the streets all over the place. Now, with that being said, you look at these people and they're loners. You can almost predict what is going on with the person that did the shooting. Loner, being rejected by everybody, no friends.
Usually
You know,
a young man in his early to
seems
mid
be.
20s. Yeah.
Now, at the same time, you could say, and the neighborhood always says, oh, you know what, now that I see this happening, well, the truth is you can't put all these people, you know, if the neighbor says, well, I think he's not so well, what are you going to do? Institutionalize him for the rest of his life? It's a very tough thing to do. The truth is, we've had things happening for hundreds of thousands of years, and you're going to have them happening for, it's a very, very sad situation.
All right, but we have, I mean, this is a startling statistic. 153,000 people have died from gunshots since 9/11. And counting 9/11, up to 2014, just over 3,000 people have died from terrorist attacks. The president's point is, we have devoted all these energies to prevent terrorism. Should there be a sense of urgency on this?
So the way I look at it, you take Chicago, you take Baltimore, you take various other places where you have tremendous gun violence and death, right? The strictest laws in the United States, in the world, for guns happens to be Chicago, where they have a lot of problems. Baltimore, a lot of the places where you have the biggest problem is where they have the strongest laws.
But
I
local
don't think
laws
it's about
without a national floor are pointless.
But the problem you have is the strongest, the most stringent laws are, in almost every case, the worst places. It doesn't seem to work. It's a tough situation, Chuck. It's a tough situation. And when it comes to the schools, it really is mental health. It's a mental problem.
You don't believe we have too many guns? Do you think there's too many guns in America?
Well, you know, you could make the case that the school that we just, you know, went through, and I see it was a gun-free zone. You were not allowed to have guns at all in that particular area. And you can make the case that it would have been a lot better had people had guns because they had something to fire back.
You say you can make that case. Do you make that case?
Well, I would say that it couldn't be much worse. I think the police did a great job. They got there quickly and they were able to kill him. But I can make the case that if there were guns in that room other than his, fewer people would have died, fewer people would have been so horribly injured.
Would you be comfortable walking around New York City if half of the residents were carrying?
Well, you know, you have different places and a lot of different things, but we have a lot of problems in New York City as is, and a lot of people have guns in New York City right now.
No, I understand that, but would you be comfortable if more people had guns?
I don't think I'd be any more uncomfortable because the people that would have them would be responsible people. So I don't think, and you know, in theory, what they say is the theory, and I can understand this very much, if you had more guns, you have more protection because the right people would have the guns. But it's a very, very difficult situation when you see the mental illness problem that you have in this country, and that's what it is. And it's not a gun problem,
All
it's
right,
a mental illness
so let's tackle
problem.
that. And wouldn't a background check, should we have a mental fitness check before you own a gun?
Well, you know, you
Before
already have pretty stringent laws, and you have pretty good and stringent laws already on the books that we don't use. A lot of these people, they come through, and again, I use the term, they fall through the cracks, and they're able to get guns, and they're able to get other things. I mean, frankly, if it wasn't guns, they'd end up getting something else that would be maybe worse than guns.
So what do you have a plan? You've talked about, you've said mental health's a problem. You said this
Mental
before.
health is a
What
problem.
would you do about it?
Well, I would work very hard on mental health without
How?
that, but I have to say, no matter what you do, you're going to have problems because you have sick people. They happen to be intelligent, and you know they can be sick as hell, and they're geniuses in a certain way. They are going to be able to break the system. These people are going to be able to get into a school or get into something, and it's a horrible thing to say, and it's not even politically correct, but it's common sense. You're going to have problems no matter how good, no matter what kind of checks you do, what kind of balance. Now, with that, I think mental health, we have to do better. We have to do a much better job with mental health.
What does that mean?
Well, it means better services, better doctors. If communities can report people that they obviously know, I mean,
Federal government get involved in something
Chuck,
like this?
there have been a couple of these cases where the communities said, we knew this guy for years was really a sicko. Now, there were 2 of those cases where it was really heavy. And you
Clearly
know,
the Aurora guy for
yes, the very tough part though is how do you take that person and say we're going to institutionalize him for the rest of his life? It's very tough. He hasn't done anything yet. So, you know, a lot of people could be covered by that would lead a fairly decent life or even a very decent life. So it's a very tough situation. But if you go back 1,000 years and you go forward 5,000 years, you're always, no matter how good the procedure is, you're always going to have a certain violence, and it's horrible to say, and people don't want to say it.
But we do have a monopoly on mass shootings in the world.
We
We
seem
have
to.
the monopoly.
We seem to.
And the only difference between us and really every other westernized country is the amount of guns we have in this country versus where UK, you name it, you know, half of Europe, you go through.
But there are other countries that have tremendous amounts of guns, and you know, and
Not
they
as many as us.
they have problems also. And there's also a copycat theory. You know, you see it. I mean, these people see it happening, and this other people. It's a small.
Do you think we should stop covering them?
Well, that might help.
I mean,
you wanna know
look,
the
I've had
truth.
complaints. Viewers will say,
Okay.
stop covering these things. It's a huge tragedy. On one hand, you cover it. On the other hand, do you stop covering
Well,
it?
I liked what the sheriff said last night, that he refuses to use his name, he refuses to show pictures of him, but in the meantime, the news is all using his name, and everybody now knows his name. Wouldn't it be wonderful if you wouldn't cover it? Because I think that's part of the problem. You have copycats, they want to do it, they think it's wonderful, they're sick people.
Let's move to your tax plan.
Okay.
You said it was going to be revenue neutral. You said it was going to raise taxes on the wealthy. A lot of people have done the numbers. Overall, it cuts taxes on the wealthy dramatically when you throw in the estate tax and things like that. And it's a big hole in the deficit until we find out what you're cutting.
Okay.
So what are
So
you cutting?
ready? We're cutting a lot. And we're cutting taxes really for the middle income more than anything else.
Everybody's taxes are going down though.
Everybody's taxes are going down, and some people won't pay tax, and the reason they're not going to pay, and I love the idea of having a little sort of fat in the game if we can, but the fact is these are people that are doing very poorly. I mean, they're making not a lot of money, and we're saving a tremendous amount of administrative costs and a lot of other things by not making them pay. Under my plan, I really think it's a very dynamic plan. We're going to grow the economy. Hey, if China does it 7%, they're having a terrible year. We're saying we can't do it 3% and 4%.
We just had
And we
4%
can.
last quarter.
Well, and we can do it. Well, we also had 0% the first quarter.
I understand, but we just had 4% the last
Okay,
quarter.
well,
And
a little less than 4%, but we had.
Right, 3.9.
Right, yeah, it was what?
3.9% last quarter.
Okay, but if you look at the overall average, we're doing 2% and we're doing less than 2% for the year. So we can do really terrifically. China, if they do 7%.
Right, but an
now, if we
emerging
do
economy,
7
an emerging economy
I
is
know
always
that,
going to go 6,
but
7.
if we do 6 or 7%
Our
under
sweet
my
spot is
plan-
3 to 5.
Right. If we do 6 or 7% under my plan, everybody benefits
We've
and
never
jobs.
done. We've never had a year
But
of
we
6 or 7%.
we can do that. We can take
How is that
back-
gonna look?
Well, first of all, a couple of things. Number one, corporate inversion is a big deal, and that's getting worse and worse. Companies are going to be leaving here. The old days, they'd leave New York and they'd go to Florida. They'd leave New Jersey. They'd go to Texas. They're leaving the United States now, and they're going out to different, whether it's Ireland and lots of other places in Europe and Asia, and they're leaving. And There are many companies right now, Chuck, that are talking about very seriously leaving this country, and you're talking about thousands of jobs. And a couple of these are big, powerful companies with lots of jobs.
But you know that your tax
we're
plan,
gonna let
one
them-
of the things, your tax plan would not stop Ford from moving, for instance, that plant.
No,
that
but
you've been
the
talking about in
incentive will
Mexico.
be, you're right, but the incentive now is going to be to stay here. And very importantly, the $2.5 trillion that we have outside of the country, which I think is a much higher number than that. You know, most people think the 2.5 is 2.5, but they have no idea. The folks that do this professionally, including government folks, have no idea what that number is. I think the 2.5 could be much better. $2.5 trillion is going to come, and more, is going to come back into the country. And that money is going to be used within the country, and it's going to be great. And they will be taxed, but taxed at a rate. Right now, if you have money outside of the country, it's almost impossible to get it back in for two reasons: the bureaucracy and the high tax. I'm going to get it back in, and that money is going to be used, and that's a huge incentive.
We still have a hole in the deficit that this tax plan blows open unless you tell us what you're cutting.
Well, I'm just telling you.
What are you cutting here? On growth, so it's 12 trillion in missing revenue over 10 years, giving you the benefit of the doubt on economic growth, gets it, you still have 10 trillion to make up.
I'll tell you, no. If we can get it up to 5% or 6%, that's a huge difference right there.
Okay, 6% is something we have not done, but
Well, we used to do it in the old days. We used to do it 6.
it was 4 to 5.
6. No, in the old days, in the good old days, we used to
What's
do
the
it.
good
And
old
I think
days?
we can do it a while ago, but there's no reason why we can't. Look, we get rid of regulations. We lower taxes. We create stimulus. We take jobs back from China, Japan, all these companies.
What you're saying is you make it all up with growth.
No, not all up with growth. We also start cutting because the waste in this country is unbelievable. When you look at all of the...
You're going to get rid of entire departments?
I would get rid of some. You look at, as an example, Department of Education.
You'd get rid of it.
No, not entirely, but I would certainly get rid of a lot of it. If you look at Jeb Bush, he's a big Common Core person. I'm not. I
Right.
want local education. We could save a fortune with environmental protection.
Financially, not a big department, though. You're not going to get rid of a lot.
It's a
You're not
lot of
gonna-
money.
You're not going to get rid of as much as you. What is another agency you get rid
Look,
of?
we have, even in the military, I'm going to build the military. It's going to be much stronger than it is right now. It's going to be so strong, nobody's going to mess with us. But you know what? We can do it for a lot less. They sent a washer from South Carolina to Texas. It cost $997,000. Okay.
So you believe you can
It was
spend
fraud.
less
It was
money on
fraud.
defense than we do today?
I think we can make our defense much stronger, spend somewhat less money, and increase. Look,
So you can cut
when
the defense
when they
budget
send,
and make the military stronger.
Chuck, when they send an 18-cent washer from South Carolina to Texas, and it costs almost $1 million to bring it there because of the fraud and abuse and everything else. I mean, it was a fraud. But there have been many cases like that. We can save so much. When a hammer that you buy at Home Depot for $8
Do you know how many
costs $900.
Do you know how many
but there's
politicians have said this over the
I know,
years?
but I'm not a politician.
Waste, fraud, and abuse. Oh, if I get waste, fraud, and abuse, and that's how I'm going to do it.
I know, but
It
I'm
never
not a
happens.
politician. I'm a business guy. I mean, of course, for the last 3 months, I'm a politician.
never happens.
But you watch it happen with me.
All
It's
right,
a
but let's
massive
get
amount of
specific
money.
here. So you're telling me you're going to be able to cut the defense budget from where it is today.
I'm gonna make sure the defense. We have better defense. We're going to have better than
you
we
think
do
you
right
can do
now.
it for less money?
But I think we can do it for less money. Yes.
So then you.
I think there's tremendous waste. We build a bomber for $2 billion, and by the way, they say it's not good. Okay, they
So
say
you'll cut-
they say the previous plane is better, and we're spending $2 billion. So maybe we go with the previous
All right, so
plane.
you're going to cut the education department. You believe you can save money in the defense department. Where else?
Environmental protection. Take
You're
a look at
gonna
environmental.
cut the
Well,
EPA? I'm
look,
just trying to
3
get
weeks
through.
ago,
We're looking
3
for
weeks ago, they
specific-
destroyed a river in Colorado. I mean, 3 weeks ago, and they were the ones that did it. They opened the gates, they opened the dam, and a lot of bad stuff came out. And they don't even know. I mean, it may be destroyed. They are, and I deal with them all the time. It's impossible.
Most real estate people do.
No. Can I be honest? It's impossible.
Shouldn't it
They're
be difficult, though?
No, it should be fair. It stops everything over nothing. Do you know one of the reasons the wall never got built was Environmental Protection Agency? They couldn't get an environmental impact statement approved. The wall. And when I talk about the wall, I'm talking about the wall
Right.
at the
I
southern
understand
border,
that, yeah.
which is very much necessary, which I'm going to get built, and Mexico's going to pay for it, by the way.
I still don't understand how you're going
A lot of
to
people
get
don't,
Mexico.
but that's what I do. You know why? Because we pay a tremendous amount of money to Mexico, number one. Number two, we lose a tremendous amount of money with everybody coming in, tremendous amount of money, including jobs, by the way. Forget about crime and everything else. And Mexico, we have a U.S. trade deficit with Mexico is close to $45 billion a year. They'll be happy if explained to them in the proper way. And I have a great relationship with Mexico. I love Mexico. I love the people of Mexico. But Mexico's going to pay for the wall.
You have promised about $4 trillion in some spending, most of it on roads and bridges. You've talked about the infrastructure issue, the healthcare plan.
I didn't say $4 trillion. You know, when you say $4 trillion,
that's
can
the
I give
estimate.
you an example?
That's the estimate of what it would cost
Right.
to
Can I give
improve
you
our
an
roads
example?
and
I'll
bridges.
give you two quick examples. I'm running for office, right? I'm doing very well, you'd have to say. I'm leading in every poll, everything. Do you know that I've spent very little money running for office?
I understand that.
Okay, less than anybody else. Guys that have spent
Most people
5
say it's
million,
people like
10
us that are giving
million.
you too much airtime.
Well, maybe, but you know, whatever it is. But I've spent very little money running for office, and yet I'm leading by a lot in every poll. State polls, Texas, North Carolina, South Carolina, New Hampshire, Iowa. No,
What
just
does
one
that have to
second.
do with
No,
transportation
it has a
funding?
lot to do.
Okay.
So I've spent almost no money, and I'm leading in every poll. That has to do with budgets. That has to do with business. You can go, I can give you so many. Oh, let me give you another example. The old post office in Washington, D.C. I got it, which is shocking because it was one of the most sought after projects in the history of the GSA, General Services Administration. I got it because my financial statement is very strong because they knew I'd get it built and they liked what I was doing more than all of these other people. I heard there were over 100 bidders. They broke it down to 10, some of the best companies in the country.
Right.
They chose Trump, which is shocking to a lot of people because it's the Obama administration chose Trump. We are way under budget and way ahead of schedule. It's going to open up it was going to be in 17, we're going to open it up in 16, we're under budget.
Right. So the button is what you're saying.
What I'm saying is the roads.
They're going to cost you $4 trillion. You're saying.
What I'm saying is these roads. I look at the cost of a road where they're going to spend $600 million building a simple road, and I don't mean I'm going to save you a little bit. We're going to bring in. You're going to build a better road. You're going to have a better road for a fraction of the cost.
Why do you
the money
think
that we're
you're the
spending.
first one that can do this, and
Because
nobody else has done
I'm
this?
a builder. I understand building. I understand negotiation. I understand deals.
Would you understand why people are skeptical?
I have
because they hear
friends-
people telling
No,
them
I
this
don't
all the
think-
time.
I think they might, but they're politicians. All talk, no action. All talk, no action.
Well, then give 'em-
also, you know another thing? They're controlled by lobbyists. They're controlled by the guys that own the companies that build the roads. I'm not. They're controlled by Ford, and they're controlled by all of these other, when they want to move plants and they want to do all these things, and they end up costing so much money for the taxpayer. I'm self-funding. I know all the guys. I know all the lobbyists. Many of them have worked for me. I'm not controlled
I'm just
by
coming back to
anybody.
the math here because nobody can seem, especially since you've said you're taking Social Security and Medicare off the table. You're not
Right.
going to do any cuts there at all.
Right.
If you take that off the table,
It's unfair to put it on the table.
I
People have been paying in for years. Now all of a sudden they're not
wouldn't-
getting what they
You
bargained.
wouldn't even raise the age of retirement?
No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that at all. I'm going to take in so much money from China and other places. Look, we have a trade deficit with China of almost $400 billion a year. $400 billion. I had it looked up the other day. I said, I can't believe it. With Japan, $75 billion a year. With Mexico, $45 billion. That's why I say the wall is going to cost $5 billion. People say 10, I say 5. And mine's going to be bigger, better, nicer, and everything else, okay? Because that's what I do. But let me say.
All right, the numbers
listen,
we come up
when
with,
we lose,
they're
I know.
not that low. I mean, you're coming up with different numbers.
No, I'm not coming up with different. When we're losing the kind of money we are with all of our trade agreements, and Carl Icahn is on board, he wants to, I'll say, Carl, look over China, look over Japan. I have the best people in the world coming. Instead of losing money, even if we broke even, we're losing $400 billion a year doing trade with China. What kind of stuff is that? And by the way, that's been going on for years.
Would you not
That's
do
been
trade
going on
with
for a
China?
long time.
I mean, there's
No,
a lot
I'll
of
do-
people of your wealth
Yeah.
work at companies that like to do business in China.
I'll do, in fact, in this building, if you go down 2 floors, you'll see the biggest bank in the world is from China,
Yeah.
and they're a tenant. In fact, I'm going to take you and show you that bank, okay?
Fair
They
enough.
pay me nice rent. They like
Okay.
me. I'm going to get along with China. We don't even get along with China. China makes a fortune off the United States. Look, what China has done to the United States is one of the greatest thefts in the history of the world, okay? And they know it. These are very smart people. They're dealing with idiots.
How would you-
They are dealing in trade.
All right.
They've taken our jobs, they've taken our base, they've taken our money, And here's the beautiful thing. We owe China right now $1.5 trillion. So they take all our money, they take our jobs, and we owe them money. Japan, we owe them, with all the cars, we owe them right now $1.5 trillion. What kind of a deal? That's like a magic act.
Let me ask you about China. It's a little off topic, but they perhaps perpetrated the worst intelligence theft of the American government. How would you have retaliated?
Well,
how would
we
President
have
Trump
tremendous
have
power.
punished?
We have
punished
tremendous power over China, but the president doesn't know it.
So
'cause
you
he's
tell
never
me the
done
power
deals.
you would use.
The power we have is economic power. We have rebuilt China. They've taken so much money.
So would you have sanctioned
Look
them?
at the deal
Would you
they
put
made.
economic sanctions on them? How would you punish them
Look
for
at the
this?
deal they made last week with Boeing. Boeing's ordering some planes, right? I mean, China's ordering planes from Boeing. Boeing has to go and build massive plants all over China. What kind of a deal is that? In other words, China doesn't want the planes to be built in Seattle, to be built in South Carolina. China wants the planes to be built in China. So
blame
Boeing,
them?
as part of it, I don't blame them, but that doesn't mean we have to go along with it. Now,
We got
we have
BMW to build
rebuilt-
cars here
Here's the
in-
power we
in-
have
in
over
this
China.
country?
We have tremendous power over China. People don't know it. Our people don't know it because they don't have a clue.
So how do you
The
use
power
it?
we have is economic. Tremendous
So
power.
do you sanction them?
By the way, China should also take North Korea and say, listen, folks, it's over. Because China has very good, they like to say they don't have as much as people think. They have total control over North Korea. We have economic power. We've rebuilt China. China has drained our country from jobs. They've taken the jobs, they've taken our money, they've rebuilt China. You go to China, you see highways, you see airports, you see things that we don't have in this country. So what I'm saying is we have this tremendous economic power over China, and I'd use it if we have to. When they do the attacks, when they do the hacks.
Right, so how do you punish
Now,
them?
here's the thing. We don't even really know it was China. Because I hear China, I hear Russia, I hear all different, I hear even North Korea with the movie studio. People think it was North Korea. The truth is, we don't even know who's doing it. And when ISIS, as another one that we hear, becomes better at the internet than us, we have a long way to go, Chuck.
So again, I go back. If you feel as if you had to retaliate against China in this, you would use a sanction. You would
Well, you could do
tariffs.
You could
what
do
would
a
you
tariff. I mean, you could.
Is that what you do?
Frankly,
Probably
well,
tariff?
you might want to do a tariff. You'd put them out of business. Let me tell you, if you charge,
You would use tariffs as a weapon, as a little bit of an economic
number
weapon.
one on trade.
general.
On trade, what they did with devaluation is incredible. 2 weeks ago, they devalued their currency, the most they've done in 2 decades. The biggest devaluation they've done in 2 decades. It was disgraceful. And that's after they've done other devaluations, makes it impossible for our companies to compete. So they do that. Now, what you do about that, what everybody said, oh, it was terrible, terrible. They don't do anything about it. What you do is you do a tariff against China. Now, just so you understand, we don't charge China anything. They do business, we don't charge them anything. You can't do business in China. You try, if you have a company here, they charge you so much tax and so much in tariffs that and they don't want your product anyway, that you can't do business. It's a one-way street. That's why they make $400 billion a year.
Let's move to Syria.
Okay.
You came across to me as if you welcomed Putin's involvement in Syria. You said it was sort of like you saw very little downside. Why?
I'll tell you what, I am somebody that, and I've been saying this to you for a long time. I want our military to be beyond anything, no contest. And technologically, most importantly, because you're getting now, militaries have to be technologically advanced, so we probably have a big advantage. We do have a big advantage of that. But we are going to get bogged down in Syria. If you look at what happened with the Soviet Union in Afghanistan, that's when they went bankrupt. They went bankrupt. They were there so long,
So you
fought
think
so hard.
you think Putin's going to get
They're
suckered
going to
into
get bogged down. Everybody that's touched the Middle East, they've gotten bogged down. Now, Putin wants to go in. Putin does not want ISIS. I know they haven't hit him as hard as they should be hitting him because
They're hitting
everyone
Assad.
thought-
They're hitting people we've trained.
Excuse me. They're hitting people. We're talking about people that we don't even know.
Right.
The rebel group, we have no idea. I was talking to a general 2 days ago. He said, we have no idea who these people are. We're training people. We don't know who they are. We're giving them billions of dollars to fight Assad. And you know what? It's very possible. I'm not saying Assad's a good guy because he's probably a bad guy. But I've watched him interviewed many times. And you can make the case, if you look at Libya, look what we did there. It's a mess. If you look at Saddam Hussein with Iraq, look what we did there. It's a mess. It's going to be the same
Do you
thing.
think the Middle East would be better today if Gaddafi, Saddam, and Assad were sort of, if Saddam and Gaddafi were still there, and Assad were stronger?
Not
Do
even
you think the Middle East would be safer?
It's not even a contest, Jack. It's not even a contest. Iraq is a disaster. And
So it'd be better off if Saddam were in
Don't forget,
charge.
ISIS came out of Iraq.
Right.
It was
No, I
like the
understand.
leftovers that didn't get
Well, let me
taken
button this
care
up.
of.
If Saddam and Gaddafi, do you think things would be more stable?
Of course it would be. You wouldn't have had your Benghazi situation, which is one thing, which was just a terrible situation, but of course it would. Libya is not even, nobody even knows what's going on over there. It's not even a country
So
anymore.
you welcome Putin's involvement?
I like that Putin is bombing the hell out of ISIS, and it's going to be ISIS. I'll tell you why. Putin has to get rid of ISIS, because Putin doesn't want ISIS coming into Russia.
Why do you trust him and nobody else does?
I don't trust him. I don't trust him at all. Other than we both got very good ratings the other night on 60 Minutes, because it was with me and Putin. Can you believe this, of all
there
things?
you go.
Right? So I don't know. Did I get the ratings or did he? But the truth is, it's not a question of trust. I don't want to see the United States. We've spent $2 trillion in Iraq, probably $1 trillion in Afghanistan. We're in there. We're destroying our country. We owe $19 trillion. We're bogged down. Russia was bogged down in Afghanistan, meaning the Soviet Union. It broke up the Soviet Union. They're going to get bogged down. You watch. As sure as you're sitting there, and I'm the one that said don't do.
So you would
Chuck,
retreat.
I said don't do Iraq.
You would pull out of what we're doing in Syria
No,
right
I'd
now.
sit back and this is not usually me talking,
Yeah.
okay? Because I'm very proactive,
Right.
as you probably know.
I know.
But I would sit back and let's see what's going on. Here's the problem to what you're saying in Syria.
Mm-hmm.
We are fighting Assad, and we're fighting for people and helping people that we don't even know who they are. And they may be worse than Assad. They may be worse, okay? They may be worse. And if Assad never happened, if you didn't have a problem in Syria, you wouldn't have the migration. You wouldn't be talking about all of these countries with what's going on in Europe. And now they're talking about taking 200,000 people that we don't even know who they are and bringing them to the United States. The whole thing is ridiculous. So I'm not justifying Putin. But you watch, he'll get bogged down there. He'll be there. He'll spend a fortune. He'll be begging to get out. Everybody that's gone to the Middle East has had nothing but problems.
So President Trump, you're going to make our footprint in the Middle East smaller.
Well, if you remember, number one, in 03, 04, I didn't want to be there.
But if you get in office in 17, you're
they got out
shrinking the
wrong.
footprint.
I wanted to take the oil, okay?
Right.
I wanted to take the oil. You know who has the oil now? Iran has the oil. Right. ISIS has the oil. You know who the biggest customer of the oil is? China. You know how much they spent? Nothing. They're the ones getting the oil, but ISIS has it. Iraq has a little bit, and there really is no Iraq. If you think about it, Chuck, there really is no Iraq. Iraq is a corrupt group of people. That's all Iraq is.
I'm getting a wrap sound, but there's two more questions I want to get at you. You said something the other day that caught me off guard. You said you're not a masochist, and if you start falling in the polls, you'll go back to your business. What does that mean? Are you not in this for the long haul or not? And I was just going to say,
yeah, it's a strange
I heard
thing.
it. You said it on the Today Show and with my buddy John Harwood,
Yeah.
and it caught my ear. I'm like, uh-oh.
No, you know
what does that
funny?
mean?
A lot of people have asked me that question. Number one, I'm not a masochist. And if I was dropping in the polls where I saw that I wasn't going to win, why would I continue? And it's funny, maybe it's like not like me because it's the power of positive thinking. I'm a very positive person. I'm a positive thinker. But the truth is, I'm a realist. I'm doing great in the polls right now. I think you will say. I'm not saying anything. I'm leading everything.
You're
right?
leading every poll.
Everything. By a lot.
In a Republican primary.
Not only leading, by a lot. Okay.
General
If I
elections
do-
are different stories, but that's all right.
Well, it
We're
is,
not there
but,
yet.
You know, I believe in polls. You know, how many elections do you see where the polls were wrong? Not that many. Okay, you see them, but not that many. If I were doing poorly, if I saw myself going down, if you would stop calling me because you no longer have any interest in Trump because he has no chance, I'd go back to my business. I have no problem with that. I would have
John
said, hey, I
McCain
gave it a good chance.
collapsed in 07.
That's true.
And he stuck it. He stuck it out.
That's right.
So you won't stick it out
I'm
if you
just
drop
saying
the 2 or
it
3?
can happen, but I'm a person that is a realist. If for some reason you stop calling me and others, your cohorts, okay, and they stop calling, that it's not going to happen. Look, I can tell you right now that in the Republican primary, I can look at some of these people that I'm competing against. I get along with most of them, believe it or not. You know, every once in a while they start hitting me because they try and build up their numbers.
Right.
But I get along with most of them. They shouldn't be, many of them should not be running any longer. They're not going to make it. It's not going to happen. If I felt I was in that position, I'd get out. But in all fairness, I think I'm in the exact opposite position right now. I'm the one everybody's gunning for.
Do you think electability should matter when people judge you? Right now, you're somebody that loses to Bernie Sanders in many of these general election
I haven't
matchups.
hit him yet.
I understand
Don't
it,
forget,
but
I haven't started.
But if you don't look, Jeb Bush does better against Bernie Sanders than you do. What
Because
explains
I haven't
that?
focused on Bernie Sanders. And you know, the one disadvantage I have, I'm not a politician. I haven't been out there. I've never campaigned. I've never done this before. But I'm a smart guy. I've had huge wins over my life. I've been a guy that wins most of the time, and if I don't win, I make it into a win. Right. But I haven't focused on Bernie Sanders, okay? And I haven't focused on Hillary either. She did a terrible job. I don't think she's going to be hard to beat. And actually, some of the polls have me beating now Hillary. I haven't seen any polls with Bernie Sanders.
Right, you struggle against Biden and Sanders and more
no,
than you do Hillary.
And look, Biden hasn't been hit yet. And Bernie Sanders hasn't been hit yet. But if I win against these other 15 or 16 or however many are left, which is a ridiculous amount of people, but assuming I get the nomination, I'm going to win. And I'll tell you why I'm going to win. Because people in this country are tired of losing, and they're tired of politicians, and they're tired of seeing what they're seeing. Our country is in trouble, and I'm going to make America great again. That's what I'm going to do.
Let me ask you, politics is a family affair. You obviously, your wife felt comfortable doing something with People magazine.
Yes.
First time.
They were very nice.
She had done that. Are we going to see her on the campaign trail?
Yes. Yes. She
How
feels
soon?
very strongly about certain issues, especially women's health issues. She feels very, very, pretty soon. She's going to start doing interviews. She'll probably even do an interview with you if you're going to be nice.
A lot of potential first ladies have an issue that they want to.
Well, she feels very strongly about women's health issues. I mean, overall women's health. As an example, Jeb Bush didn't want to fund women's health issues, okay?
Well, he made a misstatement. He corrected
made a mistake.
it.
Then he came back and he said he misspoke. When she saw that, she was so upset by it, she couldn't even believe it. And Ivanka too, who you just met. Right. Ivanka feels so strongly about women's health issues. And you know, they know how much I respect women. They know how much, and I say it, I cherish women. My mother was one of the great people of the world.
So what you're saying is we're going to see them on the trail.
They're going to be on the trail, and they want me to be more forceful on those issues because I will take care of women better than anybody else.
How soon?
I think they're going to go on very soon. I mean, I think Melania is really, she's looking forward to it actually. She'll be very good.
Next couple of weeks?
I would say within a couple of weeks, yes, and Ivanka too.
We'll be looking for it, Mr.
Thank
Trump.
you.
Thank you, sir.
Great honor.
You got it.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and then click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.